In this video, we're going to show you how to remove and replace the user interface cabinet controller on the XLS tape library machine. After you've powered the machine off, you're going to want to open up the front door, and if you also have the ability to take off the side skins, that'll make it easier to access this board as well. First thing that you're going to need to do is to remove the cables on either side of the control board. And you want to make sure that you pay particular attention to the I/O ports on either side. These may or may not be clearly labeled. As you can see, some of these have a label on them, but this one, for example, does not. So it would be helpful to note which plugs go to which socket before you start disconnecting all of the cables. You'll also want to make sure that you're careful, as you don't want to pull any of the cables out of the connector when you're disconnecting them. After all the cables have been removed, you will need to remove the 3 screws on the left and the 3 screws on the right that hold the cover panel in place. Notice if you're on. Once the screws have been removed, you should be able to remove the cover. Once the cover is removed, there are 2 additional cables that you'll need to disconnect. You'll need to remove this screw here and this screw here, also to be able to remove the board from the chassis of the machine itself. When reinstalling the board, you need to make sure that you put the short screws in first to hold the board to the chassis. You want to make sure that you don't tighten them all the way. That way you give the board a little bit of play, so when you put the cover on, you're able to get the longer screws through the board cover and the board itself. Now after you've installed the board with those 2 screws, then you can go ahead and reattach the 2 bottom cables. You'll also want to make note if your user controller has this shunt cable on it. You'll need to make sure you remove that from the defective part and install it on the new one. Then you can just reinstall the screws in the reverse order. I would recommend that you hand tighten them first, and once you've gotten them all in, then you can go through the cutout here and tighten down the ones that hold the board to the chassis, and then tighten down the remainder of the cover screws. And once the board is in place, then you can go ahead and reconnect all the cables.